Commander Zexhi's secondary breathing apparatus wheezed as he stared at the holographic display. The crimson jungle of Kepler 438b sprawled across the screen like a festering wound, its canopy pulsing with bioluminescent warnings that made his compound eyes ache. "Preliminary scans complete, Commander," reported his navigation officer, a spindly Arctesian whose skin had turned the pale blue of fear. "Atmospheric composition is hostile. Oxygen levels at 32%, far beyond safe parameters for any known sentient species. Humidity at 97%. Surface temperature averaging 43 degrees Celsius." Zexhi's mandibles clicked nervously. "And the biological hazards?" "Extensive, sir. We've identified over 400 species of venomous flora, airborne toxins that would dissolve Corellian carapaces in minutes, and predatory organisms with bite forces exceeding 12,000 psi. The entire ecosystem appears designed to kill anything foolish enough to enter." The commander's crew, a mixture of Galactic Federation's finest xenobiologists, engineers, and military personnel, murmured their agreement. This planet was a death trap, beautiful in its lethality, but utterly uninhabitable. They would mark it as a quarantine zone and move on. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Veltar, her tentacles trembling as she adjusted her instruments. "We're receiving a distress signal from the surface." Zexhi's blood chilled. "Impossible. No vessel has reported entering that hellscape." "The signal is unusual, sir. It's coming from deep within the jungle, approximately 40 kilometers, from the largest river delta. The transmission is weak, but it appears to be requesting immediate extraction." The bridge fell silent, except for the low hum of life support systems. Zexhi contemplated the implications. Some fool had crashed into that nightmare world, and Federation protocol demanded they attempt rescue, no matter how suicidal the mission seemed. "Prepare a rescue pod," he commanded. "Full environmental suits, maximum protective shielding. We'll attempt to—" "Sir," Veltar's voice cracked with disbelief. "The signal, it's moving. Whatever's down there is walking toward our position." Dr. Sarah Chen pushed aside another curtain of hanging vines, their toxic sap having long since stopped bothering her. 3 days in this jungle had taught her that most things that looked deadly were merely inconvenient, and the things that were actually deadly usually had the courtesy to announce themselves with bright colors or loud sounds. She paused to examine a cluster of fruits that glowed like tiny suns. Her modified tablet, jury-rigged from her crashed shuttle's navigation system, indicated they were safe for human consumption, though probably not recommended for beings with sulfur-based biology. She plucked several and stuffed them into her makeshift backpack. The morning had been productive. She'd identified 17 new plant species, cataloged the behavioral patterns of the local apex predators, who seemed more curious about her than hungry, and discovered that the deadly atmospheric conditions were actually quite pleasant once you got used to them. The oxygen made her feel energetic, the humidity kept her hydrated, and the temperature was like a perpetual summer day. Her stomach growled. The glowing fruits would help, but what she really wanted was coffee and pancakes. Maybe some bacon. The kind of breakfast that made mornings worth experiencing. Through the canopy, she could see the alien ship hovering nervously at the edge of space. They'd been broadcasting warnings about the uninhabitable death world for the past 6 hours. Sarah chuckled. Clearly, they'd never been to the Amazon during mosquito season. She activated her communicator. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Survey. I'm reading you loud and clear up there. Any chance you folks serve breakfast?" The response was immediate and panicked. "Dr. Chen, please maintain your current position. We are attempting to coordinate a rescue operation. The surface conditions are beyond lethal." Sarah looked around at the jungle that had become her temporary home. A family of 6-legged primates was watching her from a nearby tree, their young ones chittering with what sounded suspiciously like laughter. A butterfly, the size of her hand, bioluminescent and utterly gorgeous, had landed on her shoulder and seemed content to ride along. "Rescue operation," she replied. continuing her walk toward the clearing where she could see their rescue pod preparing to land. "That's sweet of you, but I'm doing fine down here. Though I have to ask, do you have anything resembling coffee? On that ship? The fruits here are great, but I could really go for some caffeine." The alien voices on the comm devolved into what sounded like frantic chittering. Sarah emerged from the tree line just as their rescue pod touched down, its occupants clearly visible through the transparent aluminum windows. They were sealed in what looked like hazmat suits rated for nuclear waste cleanup. She knocked on the pod's window, causing the pilot to jump so violently he nearly activated the emergency launch sequence. "Hi there," Sarah said cheerfully, her voice transmitted through the pod's external speakers. "Thanks for stopping by. I don't suppose you have any food in there? I've been living off jungle fruit for 3 days, and while it's not bad, I'm really craving something cooked." The pilot, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a very nervous accountant, stared at her in what she could only assume was shock. She was standing in the deadly atmosphere wearing nothing but her khaki field clothes, looking slightly sunburned but otherwise healthier than most people looked after a weekend camping trip. You're not wearing protective equipment," the pilot stammered through the speaker. "Should I be?" Sarah asked, glancing around at the jungle that was gradually waking up to the day. A creature that looked like a cross between a toucan and a small dragon landed nearby and began performing what was clearly a mating dance. "It's a bit humid, sure, but nothing worse than Houston in August." The silence from the pod stretched, long enough for Sarah to examine her reflection in the window. Her hair was a bit wild, and she had some colorful pollen smudged on her cheek, but she looked like someone who'd just finished a pleasant nature walk, not someone who'd survived 3 days in an alien death trap. Finally, the pilot spoke. "Dr. Chen, our scans indicate this planet should have killed you within minutes of exposure." Sarah laughed. "Oh, that explains it. You're probably not used to Earth biology. We're kind of hard to kill." She tapped the window again. "So about that breakfast?" Commander Zexhai stared at the footage streaming from the rescue pod, his worldview crumbling with each passing second. The human stood in conditions that would liquefy his internal organs, chatting pleasantly about her meal preferences, while creatures that could tear through military-grade armor frolicked around her like pets. "Sir," whispered his science officer, "I think we need to update our xenobiology databases." Zexhai watched as Dr. Chen casually plucked a flower that their sensors had classified as lethal on contact and tucked it behind her ear like a decoration. "Yes," he agreed weakly. "I think we do." On the surface, Sarah Chen was already planning her expanded survey of the planet. After breakfast, of course. A proper breakfast was essential for any good day of exploration.